There are nights that divide your life into before and after. For Madison Hart, it was a Friday in Tribeca, with too much champagne and a poker table she never should have approached. I'm going to tell you the story of Madison Hart and Catherine Sterling, a Brooklyn barista with $300 in her pocket, and Manhattan's most ruthless CEO with a smile that could cut glass. The bet was simple. Madison had a pair of queens. Catherine had a royal flush. But what Madison lost that night wasn't money. It was control. Monday morning, Park Avenue. Don't be late. A black business card, silver letters, and Madison walking into a world of corner offices and commands delivered in velvet-wrapped steel. What neither of them expected was the electricity. The way Catherine's gaze would linger too long during meetings. The way Madison's breath would catch when their hands accidentally touched. The dangerous realization that this wasn't just about a debt anymore. Because somewhere between the glass towers of Midtown and the private dinners at 11 Madison Park, a line was crossed. And what started as possession became something neither of them knew how to name. This isn't just a story about a poker game. It's a story about power, forbidden desire, and two women who discovered that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what you've been searching for all along. Stay with me until the end to know this story. See you soon. The last time I trusted my luck, I lost everything. Not just the money I'd saved over 3 years working at that coffee shop in Williamsburg, but also my pride, my peace, and without knowing it, my freedom. It was a Friday night at a penthouse in Tribeca, where champagne flowed like water, and laughter sounded hollow, empty, as if we were all acting in a play whose ending was already written. I was the only one who didn't know it. I should never have accepted Dana's invitation. She worked in HR at a massive tech company, the kind with glass-walled offices and designer furniture where nobody actually works. They just pretend. She told me it would be fun, that I'd meet interesting people, that I needed to break out of my routine of cappuccinos and tips. She didn't mention there'd be a poker table. She didn't mention Catherine Sterling would be there. Catherine. That name is spoken carefully in the Upper East Side, as if the syllables could cut you if you're not careful. CEO of Sterling Investments. A 42-year-old woman who built an empire from the ashes of a family business everyone thought was dead. Black hair cut with surgical precision, dark eyes that don't blink when they look at you, suits that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. That night she wore a charcoal gray one, almost black, with a white blouse open at the collar in a way that seemed casual but that I knew wasn't. Nothing about Catherine Sterling was casual. When I entered the penthouse, she was already there, sitting at the poker table with a champagne flute in her hand, listening to a man in a blue suit who gestured too much while talking. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone who entered. It was as if the rest of the world was background noise and she only paid attention to what really mattered. I wondered what mattered to someone like her. Subscribe now. YouTube prioritizes subscribers, and those who aren't subscribed miss future stories. Dana dragged me toward the table after 3 glasses of champagne that I drank too quickly, trying to calm my nerves about being in a place where I clearly didn't belong. The penthouse walls were white, immaculate, decorated with modern art I didn't understand, but that made me feel small. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and from up there, New York looked like a giant electric circuit, pulsing, foreign. "You play?" asked a man with a shark smile. His hair was slicked back and he wore a watch that gleamed too brightly. "I don't know how," I replied, and my voice sounded weaker than I wanted. "Even better," he said, and the others laughed, everyone except Catherine. She looked at me then. It was the first time her eyes landed on me, and I felt something cold run down my spine. It wasn't a kind look or a cruel one. It was evaluative, as if she were calculating my weight, my worth, how long it would take to break me. Then she returned her attention to the cards. "Sit down," Dana said, pushing me toward an empty chair. I didn't want to sit. I wanted to go home, to my tiny apartment in Williamsburg where at least I knew who I was. But I'd already drunk too much champagne, and my head swam in golden bubbles, so I sat. The game began. At first, I just watched. Chips moved back and forth. Players made bets with a confidence I'd never have. Catherine won most hands, but she did it without emotion, as if winning were an obvious conclusion, not a triumph. When she lost, her expression didn't change. She was terrifying in her control. After half an hour, the man with the gleaming watch stood up. "I'm out," he announced. "This is boring. Catherine always wins." "Because you play with fear," she responded, and her voice was soft but cutting, like velvet over a razor. An uncomfortable silence fell. Dana touched my shoulder. "You go in, Madison. Just a couple of hands. It's fun." It wasn't fun. But everyone was looking at me, waiting, and I didn't want to seem like a coward. So I accepted. I lost the first 2 hands quickly. I didn't understand the rules, didn't understand the signals, and every time I looked at my cards, I felt like they were written in a language I'd never learned. Catherine didn't help me. Nobody did. They just looked at me with that mixture of amusement and pity that rich people reserve for those beneath them. The third hand was different. I had good cards, or at least I thought so. A pair of queens. Dana whispered in my ear to bet big, to trust myself, and I, drunk on champagne and desperate not to look like an idiot, I bet everything I'd brought. $300. It was nothing to them, but for me it was a week's worth of groceries. Catherine looked at me again. This time, her gaze lasted longer. It traveled over my face, my neck, my trembling hands on the chips. Then she smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who just found something interesting. "I raise," she said, pushing chips toward the center of the table. "Many chips. Too many." "I can't match that," I murmured. "Then fold," said another player, an older man with a gray mustache. But Catherine raised a hand. "Or bet something else," she said, and her eyes didn't leave mine. "I don't have anything else," I replied, and my voice sounded pathetic even to me. "Everyone has something else," Catherine said, leaning back in her chair. "Time, for example, skills, loyalty." The air in the room shifted. The other players looked at each other, uncomfortable. Dana squeezed my shoulder but said nothing. "I don't understand," I whispered. "If you lose," Catherine said slowly, as if explaining math to a child, "you'll work for me. 1 month, no pay. You'll do what I tell you, when I tell you." "That's illegal," I managed to say, though my voice trembled. Catherine shrugged. "Not if you accept it voluntarily. And if you win." She let the sentence hang in the air, looking at the chips in the center of the table. "You take all of this. Enough to pay 6 months of rent." I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I was drunk. Maybe because I was tired of being invisible, of serving coffee to people who didn't even look me in the eye, of counting pennies to decide if I could buy meat that week. Maybe because a part of me, the darkest and most honest part, wanted to know what it felt like to be important to someone like Catherine Sterling, even if only as temporary property. "I accept," I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. Catherine nodded slowly, as if she'd won something worth more than the money on the table. "Show your cards," she said. I put my queens on the table, and for a moment, for one bright and stupid instant, I thought I'd won. But then, Catherine extended her hand and showed her cards, one after another, with the precision of a surgeon. Royal flush, The silence that followed was absolute. Someone whistled low. Dana released my shoulder, and I stared at those cards as if they were the pieces of my life falling apart in front of me. Catherine stood, collected the chips with slow, deliberate movements, and then handed me a business card. It was black, with silver letters, Sterling Investments, her name, a phone number. "I expect you Monday morning at 8, she said. "Park Avenue Tower, 28th floor. Don't be late." I said nothing. I couldn't. My throat was closed, my brain screaming that this couldn't be happening, that there was a way out, that there's always a way out. But when I looked into Catherine's eyes, I knew there wasn't. She wasn't the kind of person who accepts no for an answer. She left without saying goodbye, without looking back, and the penthouse suddenly seemed bigger, colder. The other players dispersed, murmuring among themselves, and Dana hugged me with a mixture of guilt and fascination in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't think." Catherine never does that. Never. "What have I done?" I asked, and my voice sounded broken. Dana didn't answer. She had no answer. And I stood there, with the black card in my hand, wondering if I'd just sold my soul at a poker table, or if I'd simply found a way to stop being invisible. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling of my apartment, listening to the sounds of the city that never sleeps, wondering what kind of person Catherine Sterling was, and what she really wanted from me. The champagne had evaporated from my system, leaving only a pounding headache and a cold, heavy fear in my stomach. At 3 a.m, I searched her name online. I found business articles, brief interviews where she responded in monosyllables, photos at charity events where she appeared alone, without a partner, without a smile. Nothing personal, nothing that told me who she really was. Just a powerful, feared, respected woman, a woman who had just won me in a bet. Sunday passed in a fog. I called my mom, but didn't tell her anything. What would I say? That I'd bet my freedom in a game I didn't understand. She'd worry, come to the city from Connecticut, try to fix it, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to be rescued. I didn't know what I wanted. Monday came too quickly. I woke at 6, showered in cold water to fully wake up, put on the best I had. Black pants I'd bought at a thrift store, and a white blouse I'd ironed 3 times to make it perfect. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. She looked scared. She looked small. I took the subway to Midtown. I'd never worked in that part of the city. It was a different world, of tall buildings and people in expensive suits walking fast, talking on phones, not looking at anyone. I felt like an imposter as I walked up Park Avenue, passing fountains and monuments I'd only seen in photos. The Sterling Investments building was glass and steel, so tall I had to tilt my head back to see the top. In the lobby, everything was white marble and indirect lighting. A receptionist looked at me with distrust when I gave my name. "Madison Hart?" she asked, checking her computer. "Yes," I replied, trying to sound confident. She made a brief call, nodded, and gave me a temporary badge. 28th floor. Elevators are to the right." The elevator ride was silent. There were 3 other people with me, all in impeccable suits, nobody talking. When I reached the 28th floor, the doors opened to an open space with glass desks, huge plants, and a view of the city that took my breath away. And at the back, behind a frosted glass wall, was Catherine's office. A young assistant with glasses escorted me to the door. "Ms. Sterling is expecting you," she said, and knocked twice before opening. Catherine was behind her desk, reviewing papers. She didn't look up when I entered. Her office was minimalist. Black desk, shelves with economics and law books, a leather chair in front of her desk and nothing else. No photos, no plants, nothing personal. It was like entering the mind of someone who had erased everything that wasn't essential. "Sit," she said without looking at me. I sat. The silence stretched for what seemed like hours but was probably only seconds. Finally, Catherine set down the papers and looked at me. In daylight, without champagne and without the distraction of the poker table, she was even more intimidating. Her skin was perfect, her features sharp, her eyes so dark I could barely distinguish the pupil from the iris. "Do you know why you're here?" she asked. "Because I lost a bet," I replied, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Catherine slowly shook her head. "You're here because you chose to be here. Nobody forced you to sit at that table. Nobody forced you to accept my proposal. You did." She was right, and that was the worst part. I couldn't blame anyone but myself. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. Catherine leaned back in her chair, studying me with that gaze that made me feel like a specimen under a microscope. "For now, nothing. Familiarize yourself with the place. Observe, learn. My assistant, Lucy, will assign you a temporary desk. You'll be available when I need you." "Available for what?" The question came out before I could stop it. A minimal smile, almost imperceptible, touched the corners of Catherine's lips. "That's the interesting part, isn't it? You don't know, and that scares you. Good. Fear keeps you alert." She stood, and I instinctively stood too. She was taller than I thought, maybe 5'9", and there was something in the way she moved with total confidence and control that made me want to back away and get closer at the same time. "One more thing, Madison," she said. And the way she pronounced my name, slowly and deliberately, made something tighten in my stomach. "For the next month, you belong to me. Your time, your attention, your loyalty. You won't fail, you won't be late. You won't question my decisions. Understood?" "Understood," I whispered. "Good. You can go." I left her office with trembling legs. Lucy showed me my desk, a small space near a window with a partial view of the city. There was no computer, no real work, just a chair, an empty desk, and the feeling that I'd just entered a trap I didn't know how to escape. The first few days were strange. I did nothing, but Catherine called me to her office several times a day for inexplicable tasks. Bring her coffee, though there was a coffee maker in her office. Pick up documents from reception, though any messenger could do it. Sit in her office while she made calls, without her asking me to do anything. Just be there. It was unsettling. Sometimes she'd look at me for seconds that felt like minutes, without saying anything, and I didn't know where to put my eyes, whether to hold her gaze or look away. Both options seemed wrong. On Friday of my first week, she asked me to stay late. The building was almost empty. Only emergency lights and the hum of air conditioning remained. I was at my desk, looking out the window at the illuminated city, when I heard her footsteps. "Come with me," she said. She didn't ask, didn't explain, and I followed her because that's what I did now. We walked toward her office, but instead of entering, she continued down a hallway I hadn't explored, to a door at the end that opened onto a private terrace. The night air was cool, almost cold, and the city spread before us like a sea of lights. Catherine approached the railing, took out a cigarette from a silver case and lit it. I didn't know she smoked. "Do you smoke?" she asked, offering me one. "No," I replied. "Good. It's a terrible habit." She smoked in silence for a minute, and I stood a few steps away, not knowing what to do with my hands, my body, the silence that stretched between us. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly, without looking at me. What? I asked, though I knew what she meant. The bet. Being here. I thought about it. The honest answer was complicated. I don't know, I admitted. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And now? She asked, finally turning to look at me. The cigarette smoke curled between us. Now I'm scared, I said, and the honesty came out before I could filter it. Of me? She asked, and there was something in her voice, something that wasn't mockery or cruelty, but something more like curiosity. Of this, I replied, gesturing vaguely toward the building, toward her, toward the entire situation. I don't understand what you want from me. Catherine took a last drag of her cigarette and stubbed it out in a small ashtray. Maybe I don't know yet either, she said. And for the first time, her voice sounded less controlled, less certain. But I'll figure it out. She approached me, and each step seemed calculated, measured. When she was close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and complex with notes of wood and spice, she stopped. You can go home, Madison, she said softly. See you Monday. I didn't move. Something in me wanted to stay, wanted to understand, I didn't know what. But she'd already turned around, walking back toward the door, leaving me alone on the terrace with the cold air and the pulsing city below. That night, I dreamed of her eyes, of the way she looked at me, as if solving a puzzle that even I didn't know I was. The second week was different. Catherine started talking to me. Not much, not about personal things, but about business, about decisions she was making, about problems she was facing. I listened, trying to keep up with her quick and calculating mind, wondering why she was including me in conversations I clearly didn't need to hear. What do you think? She asked me on a Tuesday afternoon. We were in her office, her reviewing a multi-million-dollar investment contract, me sitting in the chair in front of her desk pretending to understand the numbers. About what? I asked, surprised she'd asked for my opinion. About whether I should invest in this real estate development in Miami, she said, pushing the papers toward me. Read the summary. I read it. It was about a luxury complex in South Beach, profit projections, market risks, all those things that people like Catherine understood instinctively, and that for me were just fancy words. I don't know anything about investments, I admitted. I didn't ask for experience. I asked for your opinion, she said, leaning back in her chair, watching me with that intensity I now recognized as her natural state. I looked at the papers again, trying to find something intelligent to say. It seems risky, I said finally. A lot of money in something that might not work if tourism drops. Catherine nodded slowly. Exactly. Risky. But everything worthwhile is risky, don't you think? I didn't know if we were still talking about real estate investments. That week, I also started noticing things about Catherine that nobody else seemed to see. The way her jaw tensed when she was frustrated, though her voice remained perfectly calm. The way she drummed her fingers against her desk when she was thinking. A silent rhythm that only I seemed to hear. The way her gaze softened, just a little, when she talked about certain projects, like a scholarship program for low-income students that her company quietly funded. Why don't you publicize it? I asked her one day, after reading about the program in an internal document. Publicize what? She asked, without looking up from her computer. The scholarships, the foundation. You could get good press. I don't do it for press, she said simply. I do it because it's right. It was the first glimpse of real humanity I saw in her, and it unsettled me more than her coldness. On Thursday of that week, she asked me to accompany her to a business dinner. It wasn't a request. It was an order disguised as an invitation. I need you to come with me tonight, she said. Dinner with potential investors. 8 p.m., 11 Madison Park. Lucy has a dress for you. Why do you need me to go? I asked. Because it helps me to have a second perspective, she replied, and because you need to learn how this world really works. I didn't argue. At 7 p.m., Lucy took me to a private dressing room where a dress hung. Black, elegant, probably more expensive than my entire wardrobe combined. I tried it on, and it fit perfectly, which was unsettling. How did Catherine know my size? At 10 to 8, I was in the lobby waiting. Catherine came down from the elevator exactly at 8. She wore a navy blue dress that fit her figure with the perfection that seemed designed specifically for her, and her hair, usually pulled back, was loose, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. I stared at her longer than I should have. "Ready?" she asked, and there was something different in her voice, something softer. "I think so," I replied. A private car waited outside. During the drive to the restaurant, Catherine explained who the investors would be, what they expected from the meeting, what to say, and what not to say. "And Madison," she said just before we arrived, "don't mention how we met. Officially, you're my new executive assistant." "Why would I lie?" I asked. "Because the truth would complicate things," she replied, and didn't elaborate, and it was. We flew to Connecticut the next day, and Catherine met my mother for the first time at the hospital where my father was recovering. My mother, Maria Hart, was small but fierce, with the same dark hair as me, but with silver streaks at the temples. 11 Madison Park was exactly what I expected. Dim lighting, minimalist decor, prices that probably required a mortgage. The investors were already there. 3 middle-aged men in expensive suits, and an older woman with jewelry that gleamed even in the low light. Catherine transformed. She wasn't the cold and calculating woman from the office. She was charming, funny when she needed to be, serious when the situation required it. She talked about numbers with the ease of someone talking about the weather, and the investors looked at her with a mixture of respect and caution. I remained mostly silent, as she'd instructed, but occasionally Catherine looked at me, as if seeking confirmation, or simply reminding herself that I was there. The dinner lasted 3 hours. By the time we finished, the investors had agreed to invest in Catherine's new project, something related to renewable energy that sounded impressive, but that I didn't fully understand. When we left the restaurant, Catherine seemed satisfied but tired. "You did well," she told me while we waited for the car. "You didn't talk too much, didn't say anything wrong. Good." "I just sat there," I replied. "Sometimes that's all you need," she said, looking at me in a way that made me uncomfortable and something else I couldn't identify. A presence, someone to trust. The car arrived and we got in. During the drive back, neither of us spoke. I looked out the window, watching the city pass in a blur of lights, aware of Catherine's presence beside me, of the small but significant space between us on the back seat. When we arrived at my building in Williamsburg, Catherine told the driver to stop. "Thank you," I said, preparing to get out. "Madison," she said, and her voice stopped me. "Yes?" I asked, turning to look at her. She hesitated, and it was the first time I'd seen her hesitate about anything. Her eyes studied me in the darkness of the car, and I felt as if she were making an important decision. "Tomorrow is Friday," she said finally. "Take the day off." "Why?" I asked, confused. "Because you've worked hard this week," she replied, "and because I can." I got out of the car feeling bewildered. Catherine never did anything without reason, so why give me a day off? It didn't make sense, but neither did most of what had happened in the last 2 weeks. I spent Friday in my apartment, trying to process everything. I called my best friend, Sophie, who worked as a nurse at a public hospital. "Let me see if I understand this," Sophie said over the phone. "This woman won you in a poker bet, has you working for her without pay, takes you to fancy dinners, buys you expensive dresses. Madison, do you realize how weird this all sounds?" "I know," I admitted, lying on my bed staring at the stained ceiling. "But it's not, I don't know, it's not bad. It's just confusing." "Confusing how?" Sophie asked, and I heard the background noise of the hospital. "Sometimes she looks at me like she wants to say something but can't," I said. "And other times she's cold and distant. I don't understand what she wants from me." "Maybe she doesn't want anything," Sophie said. "Maybe she just likes having power over you." That possibility disturbed me more than I wanted to admit. On Saturday, my phone rang at 10 in the morning. It was an unknown number. "Yes?" I answered, with a sleepy voice. "Madison," Catherine's voice said, and I sat up immediately in bed, fully awake. "Do you have plans today?" No, I replied, my heart beating faster than normal. "Good. I'll pick you up in an hour. Dress casual." "For what?" I asked, but she'd already hung up. I showered quickly, put on jeans and a white t-shirt, and exactly an hour later I heard the horn outside. I ran down and found Catherine in a black sports car, not the sedan with driver she usually had. She wore jeans too, a denim shirt and sunglasses. She looked normal, almost human. "Get in," she said. I got in, and she started driving before I could buckle my seatbelt. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You'll see," she replied, and for the first time since I'd met her, she smiled. It wasn't a full smile, but it was something. She drove north, leaving the city, and I stayed quiet, not knowing what to say or do. The music in the car was smooth jazz, and Catherine drummed her fingers against the steering wheel to the rhythm. After 40 minutes, we arrived at the Hamptons. Not the touristy beaches everyone knows, but a quieter, less commercial part, where the water was clearer and trees grew dense along the shore. "The Hamptons?" I asked, surprised. "I grew up near here," Catherine said, parking the car. "Before everything else." It was the first personal thing she'd told me, and I treated it with the care of something fragile. We walked down a dirt path to a small dock where an older man waited for us with a boat. Catherine greeted him with familiarity, and he helped us aboard. "Mr. Roberts has known me since I was a kid," Catherine explained as the boat started moving. "My father knew him." "Your father?" I asked cautiously. Catherine looked at the water, her expression hard to read behind the sunglasses. "He died when I was 16, she said. "Left debts, enemies, a mess. My mother didn't know how to handle it. I had to learn fast." I said nothing. Sometimes silence is more respectful than empty words. "That's why I'm like this," Catherine continued, and her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "Controlling. Careful. I can't afford to be any other way." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She took off her sunglasses and looked at me directly. Without the glasses, without the office armor, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "Because I want you to understand that I'm not just that," she said. "The cold CEO, the woman who won you in a bet. I'm more than that." "Why does it matter what I think?" I asked, and my voice came out more trembling than I wanted. Catherine didn't answer immediately. She looked at the water, the trees, the clear blue sky. Mr. Roberts rode in silence, giving us privacy. "Because you've been on my mind more than you should be," she said finally, and the honesty in her voice hit me like a wave. "And I don't know what to do with that." My heart was beating so hard, I was sure she could hear it. The air between us felt charged, electric, dangerous. "Catherine," I started, but didn't know how to finish the sentence. "You don't have to say anything," she said, putting her sunglasses back on, rebuilding her armor. "I just wanted you to know." We spent the rest of the ride in a silence that wasn't uncomfortable, but was full of unspoken things. When we returned to the dock, Catherine took me to a small local restaurant where we ate lobster rolls and drank iced tea. She told me stories of her childhood, of growing up without money, of working in her father's business from age 12, of building her empire literally from scratch. "Was it worth it?" I asked her while we ate. "All the sacrifice?" Catherine thought about the question, turning her glass between her hands. "Ask me in 10 years, she said finally. "Sometimes I think yes. Other times I think I sacrificed too much." "Like what?" I asked. She looked at me, and this time she didn't look away. "Like this," she said. "Connection, honesty, the possibility of trusting someone without calculating the risk." If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does. I didn't know what to say. The vulnerability in her voice was so strange, so out of place coming from Catherine Sterling, that it left me speechless. On the drive back to the city, as the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Catherine drove slower, as if she didn't want the day to end. "Madison," she said when she parked in front of my building. "I know this is weird. I know it doesn't make sense. But I need you to know that you can leave whenever you want. The bet. To hell with the bet. If you want to leave, leave." I looked at her, confused. "Why would you tell me that now?" "Because I want you to stay by your own choice," she replied. "Not because you feel obligated." "And if I stay?" I asked, and the question was loaded with meanings neither of us was ready to name yet. "Then we'd have to figure out what that means," Catherine said. "Together." That night I didn't sleep well. I kept thinking about her words, about the way she looked at me, about the fact that for the first time in my life, someone was giving me the power to choose, and that was more terrifying than any obligation. Monday arrived, and I decided to stay. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to understand what this was, what it could be. I arrived at the office early, and Catherine was already there, as always. "Good morning," she said when I entered her office. "Good morning," I replied. We looked at each other for a long moment, and something changed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't obvious, but something fundamental had shifted between us. "Today you have a different task," Catherine said. "I want you to come with me to all my meetings. Observe, learn, take notes if you want. But mainly, I want your perspective." "My perspective?" I asked. "I don't know anything about business." "That's exactly why," she said. "I've been seeing things from the inside for so long that sometimes I lose perspective. You see things differently. That's valuable." During that week, I was her shadow. I followed her to meetings with bankers, with lawyers, with other CEOs. I saw how she negotiated, how she read people, how she knew exactly when to push and when to back off. It was fascinating and terrifying at the same time, seeing how her mind worked at speeds I could never reach. But I also saw her moments of doubt, the times she bit her lower lip when she was unsure, the way her hand trembled slightly before signing an important contract. I saw the human behind the mask, and that made me want to know her more. On Friday of that week, she called me to her office just before the day ended. "Sit," she said, and there was something different in her voice. Something nervous. I sat, my heart beating fast for reasons I didn't want to examine too closely. "Your month is almost over," she said. 2 weeks left." "I know," I replied. "What are you going to do after?" she asked, and her eyes studied me with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "I don't know," I admitted. "I guess go back to my normal life. The coffee shop, my apartment. None of this." Catherine nodded slowly, as if processing important information. "What if I don't want you to go back to your normal life?" she asked, and the question hung in the air between us. "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Catherine stood, walked around her desk, and leaned against it, standing in front of me. She was close enough that I could see the small golden flecks in her dark eyes. "I mean," she said slowly, choosing each word carefully, "that I want you to stay, not as payment for a bet, as my real assistant, with real salary, with real benefits, because you're good at this, because you help me see things differently, because what?" I asked when she didn't finish. She exhaled, and for the first time she seemed unsure. "Because you matter to me," she said finally, "and that doesn't happen to me often." My mouth was dry. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. "Catherine, I started but didn't know how to finish." "You don't have to answer now," she said quickly. "Think about it. But I need you to know that this is real. My offer is real, and what I feel," she paused, searching for the words, "is also real." I stood from the chair, suddenly needing space, needing air. Catherine didn't move, just watched me with those eyes I now knew, that I'd learned to read. "I need time," I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I felt. "Take all the time you need," Catherine replied. "But Madison, if you decide to stay, if you decide to give this a chance, whatever this is, I need it to be your choice. I can't. I don't want to force anything." I nodded, unable to trust my voice, and left her office with trembling legs and my mind racing at 1,000 miles per hour. That night I called Sophie again. "I think I'm in trouble," I told her without preamble. "What kind of trouble?" she asked, and I could hear the concern in her voice. "I think I'm starting to care," I admitted. "About Catherine, this absurd situation, everything." Sophie sighed. "Madison, honey, that's been obvious since the first week. The question isn't whether you care. The question is what you're going to do about it." That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? Stay in this world I still didn't fully understand, with a woman who scared and fascinated me in equal measure, or go back to my safe, predictable life, where I knew exactly who I was. I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew I needed to figure it out soon. I spent the weekend in a constant state of agitation. My apartment, which had always been my refuge, felt small and claustrophobic. I couldn't stop thinking about Catherine, about her offer, about the way she'd said, "You matter to me," as if those words had cost her everything to admit. Sunday afternoon, my mom called from Connecticut. Her voice was warm, familiar, a reminder of who I was before all this. "How's my girl?" she asked. "I haven't heard from you in weeks." "I'm fine, Mom," I replied, and the lie felt heavy on my tongue. "Just busy." With the coffee shop job?" she asked, and I could imagine her in her house's kitchen, preparing something while talking. "I don't work there anymore," I admitted. "I got something different." I told her an edited version of the truth. A new job at an investment firm. Nothing about the poker bet. Nothing about Catherine and the way she looked at me as if I were a puzzle she needed to solve. "Sounds important," my mom said, and there was pride in her voice. I always knew you were special, Madison. That you'd accomplish great things. I hung up feeling worse than before. What would she say if she knew the truth? That her daughter had bet her freedom in a game she didn't understand. That she was now considering staying for a woman who scared and fascinated her in equal measure. Monday arrived with a gray sky threatening rain. I arrived early at the office, before Catherine, which was rare. I sat at my desk looking at the city waking up, thinking about what I'd tell her. When Catherine arrived, she walked straight to her office without looking at me. That was unusual. Normally, even if just a nod, she acknowledged me. Today, nothing. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, Lucy came to my desk. "Ms. Sterling wants to see you," she said, and there was something in her tone, something careful. I entered Catherine's office and immediately noticed something was wrong. There was another person there, a young woman, maybe my age, with short brown hair and an impeccable suit. She was beautiful in a way that seemed natural, but probably required a lot of effort. "Madison," Catherine said, and her voice was professional, distant, so different from how it had sounded on Friday. "This is Victoria Montes. She'll be working with us for the next few weeks." Victoria extended her hand with a bright smile. "A pleasure to meet you," she said. "Catherine has told me a lot about you." I didn't know what to say to that. I shook her hand, noticing how Catherine watched us with a carefully neutral expression. "Victoria has an MBA from Stanford," Catherine explained. "She'll be helping us with international expansion. Madison, I want you to work with her. Show her how things work here." It was like a bucket of cold water. After everything that had happened, after the personal conversations and the loaded looks, Catherine was relegating me to train her replacement. Or that's what it felt like. "Of course," I managed to say, and my voice sounded hollow even to me. During the next few days, Victoria became a constant presence. She was smart, efficient, and worse still, Catherine seemed different with her. Not cold, but comfortable, as if they spoke the same business language that I could never fully learn. Jealousy was a slow poison. I hated myself for feeling it, but I couldn't help it. I watched how Catherine smiled at Victoria's comments, how she nodded with approval at her suggestions, how sometimes their hands brushed when they shared documents. On Wednesday, I found Catherine and Victoria having lunch together in her office. Something in my chest tightened painfully. "Sorry," I murmured, turning to leave. "Madison, wait," Catherine said. But I was already leaving, walking fast toward the bathrooms because I needed a place where nobody could see me fall apart. I locked myself in a stall and breathed deeply, trying to calm the panic rising in my throat. This was ridiculous. Catherine wasn't mine. She never had been. The bet, the month working for her, everything was just... what? A game? A distraction? I heard the bathroom door open. "Madison," Catherine's voice echoed in the tiled space. "I know you're here." I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice. "Open the door," she said, and her voice was softer now, less imperative. "I'm fine," I managed to say. "I just need a moment." "You're not fine," Catherine replied. "And I know because I wouldn't be either." That made me pause. Slowly, I opened the stall door. Catherine was there leaning against the sinks, arms crossed. Without her authority armor, just a woman who looked tired. "Jealous?" she asked directly. No beating around the bush. My first reaction was to deny it, but something in her gaze made it impossible to lie. "Yes," I admitted, and the word felt like a confession of something bigger. Catherine nodded slowly, as if she'd confirmed a hypothesis. "Good," she said. Good? I repeated, confused. Victoria is brilliant, competent, exactly the type of person I should hire, Catherine explained, pushing off from the sink and approaching me. And I feel absolutely nothing for her except professional respect. Then why? I started. Because I needed to know, Catherine interrupted. I needed to know if this was real, if you felt what I feel. Anger and relief collided in my chest. You tested me? I asked, and my voice rose. Is that what this was? A damn test? It wasn't planned that way, Catherine said, and for the first time she sounded defensive. Victoria was going to come anyway, but when I met her, when I saw how you reacted, yes, I wanted to see. I'm sorry. You can't play with people like that, I said, and the tears I'd been holding back finally threatened to spill. You can't just manipulate situations to get the answers you want. I know, Catherine admitted, and there was genuine guilt in her eyes. I know, and you're right. But Madison, you need to understand something. I don't know how to do this. This, she gestured between us. Whatever this is, I'm good at business. I'm good at control, at strategy, at reading people. But this is different. You're different. Different how? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Catherine took another step closer, and the space between us felt charged, dangerous. You make me want things I stopped letting myself want a long time ago, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Connection, honesty, the possibility that someone could see me, really see me, and not run away. My breath caught. We were so close I could see the small lines around her eyes, could smell her perfume, could feel the heat emanating from her body. Catherine, I started, but didn't know how to finish. Tell me to stay, she said, and there was a vulnerability in her voice I'd never heard before. Not for work. Not for money. Stay because you want to see where this goes. Because you feel what I feel. I don't even know what you feel, I whispered. Catherine slowly raised her hand, giving me all the time in the world to back away. When I didn't, she touched my cheek with a softness that contradicted everything I knew about her. I feel like I can't stop thinking about you, she said. I feel like every decision I make, I wonder what you would think. I feel like when you're not around, something's missing. And it terrifies me. It terrifies me because I have no control over this. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. My whole body was on alert, aware of every point where we almost touched. I'm scared too, I admitted. Of this. Of you. Of what it means. Then let's be scared together, Catherine said, and her thumb caressed my cheek in a gesture so intimate it made me tremble. For a moment, I thought she'd kiss me. For a moment, I wanted her to. But instead, she dropped her hand and stepped back, putting distance between us. Think about it, she said. Really think about it, Madison. Because if you decide to stay, if you decide to give this a chance, there's no going back. Not for me. She left the bathroom, leaving me trembling, with my heart racing and my mind in chaos. That afternoon, Victoria found me in the break room making coffee. Hey, she said, her voice friendly but cautious. I hope I haven't complicated things between you and Catherine. I looked at her, surprised. What? Victoria smiled in a way that was completely knowing. Please, I've seen how she looks at you, and how you look at her. I'm not a threat, if that's what worries you. I don't know what you're talking about, I said weakly. Sure you don't, Victoria replied, pouring her own coffee. Look, Catherine and I are friends. We went to college together. I know what she's like. I know she builds walls around herself. But I've never seen her look at someone the way she looks at you. Just be careful. Not because she's a bad person, but because she doesn't know how to do this without hurting herself. Or you. She left me with that warning, and I spent the rest of the day thinking about it. Thursday night, Catherine asked me to stay after everyone had left. When the building was empty, she called me to her office. I need to show you something, she said, and there was nervousness in her voice. She took me to a private file in her office, pulled out a folder and put it on her desk. This is... She paused, searching for the words. My story. The real one. Not the one that appears in magazines. I slowly opened the folder. Inside were documents, photos, yellowed newspaper clippings. A photo of a man who was obviously her father, young and smiling. Debt documents, foreclosure notices. And then, more recent photos of Catherine, younger, maybe 20, in work clothes, in what looked like a warehouse. After my father died, we lost everything, Catherine explained, her voice softer than normal. The house, the business, everything. My mother went to live with her sister in Boston. I stayed here, worked in warehouses, as a waitress, doing anything that paid. Slept in shared rooms, ate once a day. But I learned how money really works, who has power, how to get it. I looked at photos of this younger Catherine, thinner, with eyes that already showed that iron determination. It took me 10 years to build what I have now, she continued. 10 years of non-stop work, of sacrificing everything else, of becoming someone people feared because it was easier than being someone they pitied. Why are you showing me this? I asked softly. Because I want you to understand who I really am, she replied. Not just the CEO, not just the cold woman from the office. I'm someone who had to fight for every damn thing I have. And that's why I don't know how to surrender. I don't know how to let someone in without calculating the risk, without protecting myself. I carefully closed the folder and looked at her. You don't need to protect yourself from me, I said. Don't I? She asked. And there was so much fear in those two words that it broke my heart. What if I disappoint you? What if this doesn't work? What if in the end I'm too damaged, too controlling, too much of everything bad? I stood and walked around the desk, standing in front of her. Catherine stood too, and we were there, looking at each other, with years of pain and fear between us, but also something else, something fragile and hopeful. We're all a little damaged, I said finally. That doesn't make you less worthy of this, of connection, of being seen. If any part of this story resembles your life, the hype button helps keep it from staying silent. Catherine closed her eyes for a moment, as if my words physically hurt her. When she opened them again, there was something decided in them. I want to take you somewhere, she said, this weekend. Away from the city, away from all this. Just us. Would you come? It was an invitation loaded with implications. It wasn't just a weekend. It was a line that, once crossed, would change everything. Yes, I said, before my brain could intervene with all the reasons why this was a bad idea. Catherine exhaled, as if she'd been holding her breath. Good, she said. I'll pick you up Saturday at 9. That night, Sophie called me because apparently she had a sixth sense for knowing when I was doing something risky. Tell me you're not going to do what I think you're going to do, she said without preamble. Depends on what you think I'm going to do, I replied. Madison, seriously, This woman is your boss. She's rich, she's powerful, and clearly has issues. Do you really think this is going to end well?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I need to find out." "What if you get hurt?" Sophie asked, her voice softening. "I'm already hurt," I replied, and it was true. I'm already too involved. So I'd rather know what this could be than live wondering what would have happened if I'd dared. Sophie sighed. "Okay, but call me. Every day. And if at any point you feel something's wrong, you get out of there. Promise me." "I promise," I said, though I wasn't sure I could keep it. Friday was strange. Catherine and I barely spoke, but there was a tension between us, an anticipation of what was to come. Victoria left early, not without first giving me a hug and whispering "good luck" in my ear, which confirmed that she definitely knew what was happening. That night I didn't sleep well. I kept thinking about what this weekend meant, where Catherine would take me, what would happen when we were alone without the office structure keeping us in our designated roles. Saturday dawned clear and sunny, ironic considering the storm of nerves in my stomach. I dressed simply, jeans, a comfortable blouse, flat shoes. I didn't know where we were going, so I opted for practical. Catherine arrived exactly at 9, punctual as always. She wore dark jeans and a white shirt, her hair loose, sunglasses. She looked younger like that, more relaxed. "Ready?" she asked when I got in the car. "I think so," I replied, buckling my seatbelt. She drove north, leaving the city. For the first hour, we listened to music in silence, a smooth jazz playlist that gradually lulled me. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, but one full of possibility. After 2 hours, we arrived at the Hamptons. The town was beautiful, with its cobblestone streets and colorful houses, the lake gleaming under the sun. Catherine drove to a private house in the hills, modern but cozy, all windows and light wood. "It's mine," she explained when my surprise must have been obvious. "I come here when I need to think." Inside, the house was warm. Large windows overlooked the ocean. There was a stone fireplace, comfortable furniture. It was so different from Catherine's cold and minimalist office that it made me wonder which was the real one, or if both were in different ways. "Hungry?" Catherine asked, leaving our bags at the entrance. "A little," I admitted. "There's a terrace with an ocean view. We can have lunch there," she said, heading to the kitchen. I followed her and watched her prepare something simple. Sandwiches, fruit, lemonade. It was strangely domestic seeing Catherine Sterling, feared CEO, cutting tomatoes and spreading mayonnaise. "I didn't know you cooked," I commented. "There are many things you don't know about me," she replied, looking at me with a small smile. "That's the point of this weekend, isn't it? Really getting to know each other." We ate on the terrace, the fresh ocean air caressing our faces, the sun warming our backs. Catherine told me more about her childhood, about her mother who now lived in Boston in peace after years of struggle, about how she learned to navigate the business world being a woman and being young. "Was it worth it?" I asked. "All the sacrifice?" Catherine thought about the question, as she had before. "Ask me again at the end of this weekend," she said, and there was something in her gaze that made my stomach tighten. In the afternoon, we walked through town. Catherine took me to small craft shops. We bought sweet bread at a local bakery. We sat on the shore watching sailboats pass. It was normal. So normal that I almost forgot who Catherine was in the city, what she represented. "Thank you," I said suddenly as we walked back to the house. "For what?" Catherine asked, taking my hand. It was a casual gesture, but the contact sent electricity up my arm. "For this. For showing me this side of you. I replied, aware of how our hands fit together, of how it felt so natural and terrifying at the same time. It's the only side that matters here, Catherine said. I'm not your boss this weekend, Madison. I'm just me. That night, we made dinner together. Simple pasta, salad, wine. We sat in the living room with the fireplace lit because the air had turned cold, and we talked. We talked about everything. My dreams I'd set aside for the need to survive. Her fear that what she'd built was just an empty house with nobody to share it with. Our families, our insecurities. Have you ever been in love? Catherine asked suddenly, the wine making her bolder. The question took me by surprise. Once, I admitted. In college. Her name was Anna. It lasted 6 months before she decided I wasn't exciting enough for her. You're more than exciting enough, Catherine said, and there was something fierce in her voice. She was an idiot. And you? I asked. Have you been in love? Catherine looked at the fire, her features soft in the golden light. No, she said finally. I've slept with people. I've had relationships that lasted months. But love? No. I was always too busy building, too scared of losing control. And now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Catherine looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something that made me forget how to breathe. Now I'm terrified, she admitted, because I think I could fall in love with you. The air between us became dense. My heart was beating so hard I was sure she could hear it. Catherine, I started, but didn't know how to finish. She moved closer slowly, giving me all the time in the world to stop her. When she was close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and complex with notes of wood and spice, she stopped. Tell me to stop, she whispered. If this isn't what you want, tell me to stop, and I will. But I didn't want her to stop. I wanted the opposite. So instead of speaking, I leaned forward and closed the distance between us. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if we were both afraid of breaking something fragile. But then something changed, something loosened, and suddenly we were closer. Her hands in my hair, my hands on her waist, the world narrowing to just this moment, just us. When we finally separated, we were both breathless. God, Catherine whispered, her forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that since the first time I saw you. At the poker table? I asked, surprised. Before, she admitted. I saw you enter the penthouse. You wore a blue dress. You were nervous. And I thought you were the most beautiful person I'd ever seen in my life. So the whole bet, I started. Was an excuse, Catherine interrupted. A stupid and manipulative way to keep you close. I know, and I'm sorry, but I don't regret the result. I should have been angry. I should have felt betrayed. But instead, I only felt an overwhelming relief that we were finally here, being honest. I don't regret it either, I admitted, though I should. Catherine smiled, and it was a real, complete smile, transforming her entire face. Do you want to go to bed? She asked, then rushed to add, just to sleep. I want to hold you. I want to wake up with you tomorrow. Is that okay? I nodded, unable to trust my voice. The master bedroom was spacious, with a huge bed and windows overlooking the moonlit ocean. We changed in the bathroom by turns, and when I came out in an old t-shirt and shorts, Catherine was already in bed, waiting for me. I lay beside her, and she pulled me toward her body, hugging me from behind. Her breath was warm against my neck, her body firm against mine. Is this okay? She whispered. Yes, I whispered back. This is more than okay. Madison, she said after a moment, I don't want to rush you. I don't want to pressure you. This can go as slow as you need." I turned in her arms so I could look at her face. "I don't need to go slow," I said. "I need to go honest. And this," I gestured between us, "feels like the most honest thing I've done in a long time." Catherine kissed me then, soft and deep, and I felt like I was falling and flying at the same time. That night I slept in her arms, and it was the best sleep I'd had in months. I woke to sunlight filtering through the windows and the sound of seagulls outside. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I felt Catherine's arm around my waist, her deep and regular breathing against my back, and everything came back to me in a warm wave. I carefully turned so as not to wake her and just watched her. In sleep, Catherine looked different. The tension lines on her face had softened. Her lips were slightly parted, her hair messy against the pillow. She looked vulnerable, young, beautiful in a way that made me want to protect her from everything that had hurt her. Her eyes slowly opened, focusing on me. For a second, I saw confusion, then recognition, then a smile that was so genuine it took my breath away. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice husky with sleep. "Good morning," I replied. We stayed like that for minutes that felt like hours, just looking at each other, as if we were memorizing every detail of each other's faces. "Coffee?" she finally asked. "Please," I replied. She got up, and I watched her move around the room, putting on a robe, and I thought I could get used to this, to these quiet mornings with her. We had breakfast on the terrace. Coffee, pastries we'd bought yesterday, fresh fruit. The ocean gleamed under the morning sun, and everything seemed perfect in a way that scared me, because perfect things don't last. "What are you thinking?" Catherine asked, watching me over her coffee cup. "That this seems too good to be true," I admitted. Catherine set down her cup, her expression becoming serious. "I know," she said. "And I understand if you're waiting for something to go wrong. I'm waiting for it too. But Madison, what if for once, just for this weekend, we let ourselves believe that good things can last?" It was a tempting proposition, a temporary fantasy. I nodded, deciding to believe, even if just for today. We spent the morning exploring. Catherine took me to a mountain trail with breathtaking views of the valley. We walked hand in hand, talking about trivial things and deep things, laughing for no reason, just existing together in a way that felt natural. "Thank you," Catherine said suddenly as we rested on a rock overlooking the ocean. "For what?" I asked. "For giving me a chance," she replied. "For not running away when you found out how complicated I am." "We're all complicated," I said, squeezing her hand. "That just makes us human." In the afternoon, as the sun began to set, we were back at the house. Catherine was in the kitchen preparing something for dinner, and I was in the living room looking at photos on the fireplace mantel that I hadn't noticed before. One photo in particular caught my attention. Catherine, probably around 18, with an older man who was obviously her father. They were both smiling, and there was such happiness on their faces that it made my chest ache. "That was the last birthday before he died," Catherine said from behind me. I hadn't heard her come in. "I'm sorry," I said, returning the photo to its place. "Don't be sorry," she replied, approaching. "I like remembering him like that. Happy. Before everything got complicated." "How did he die?" I asked softly. Catherine exhaled long. "Heart attack. Stress, the doctor said. He had debts he couldn't pay, people pressuring him, and his body just gave up." She paused. "I found him, in his office. It was too late." My heart clenched. Without thinking, I hugged her, holding her tight. "I'm so sorry," I whispered against her shoulder. Catherine clung to me as if I were a lifeline. "That's why I'm like this," she said, her voice muffled against my neck. "Why control is so important to me. Because I saw what happens when you lose it. When you let things overwhelm you." "You're not your father," I said firmly, pulling back enough to look into her eyes. "You built something incredible from his ashes. That takes more strength than most people have." "Do you really believe that?" she asked. And there was such vulnerability in her voice that it broke something inside me. "I know it," I replied. Catherine kissed me then, deep and desperate, and I felt all her emotions in that kiss: pain, need, hope, fear. I responded with the same intensity, trying to convey without words that I saw her, all of her, and I wasn't running away. When we separated, we were both breathless, and something in the air had changed, intensified. "Madison," Catherine said, her voice hoarse, "I don't want to rush you, but I need you to know. I need to tell you." "What?" I asked, my heart racing. "That I'm not good with words when it comes to this. But you matter to me more than should be possible in such a short time, and it terrifies me. It terrifies me because the last time I let myself feel something this strong, I lost everything." I took her face in my hands. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Not unless you ask me to leave." "Never," Catherine replied immediately. "I'll never ask you that." That night was different. We had dinner in silence, but it was a silence charged with anticipation. Afterward, we sat on the couch in front of the fireplace, and this time when Catherine kissed me, she didn't stop. "Are you sure?" she whispered against my lips, her hands on my waist but not moving beyond. "I'm sure," I replied, and I was. What followed was slow, deliberate, Catherine memorizing every part of me with her hands, her mouth, her eyes. It was terrifying and perfect at the same time, surrendering completely to someone who had spent weeks being a figure of power over me, and now was just a vulnerable and needy woman in my arms. Afterward, lying in bed with the sheets tangled around us, Catherine traced invisible patterns on my skin. "Regrets?" she asked softly. "No," I replied honestly. "You?" "Never," she said, kissing my shoulder. "But I'm scared." "Of what?" I asked, turning to look at her. "That when we go back to the city, this will disappear," she admitted. "That the reality of who I am, of how complicated this will be, will make you change your mind." I moved closer, our noses almost touching. "The city won't change how I feel," I said. "Nothing will change that." "I hope you're right," Catherine whispered, and there was so much fear in those words that I hugged her tighter, trying to convey with my body what words couldn't. Sunday dawned cloudy, as if the sky knew our escape from reality was coming to an end. We spent the morning in comfortable silence, packing slowly, delaying the inevitable. "I don't want to leave," I said as I closed my bag. "Me neither," Catherine replied. "But we have to. The real world is waiting for us." The drive back to the city was quieter than the one there. We were both lost in our thoughts, processing everything that had happened, preparing for what would come. When Catherine stopped in front of my building, neither of us moved immediately. "What now?" I finally asked. Catherine took my hand, intertwining our fingers. "Now we navigate this together," she said. "It won't be easy. There will be complications. People will talk, but if you're willing—" "I'm willing," I interrupted, "but I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Catherine said. Promise me you'll be honest with me. Always. No games, no manipulations, no tests, just honesty. Catherine nodded slowly. I promise, she said, and I need you to promise me something too. What? I asked. That you'll tell me when it's too much, when my controlling nature is too much, when you need space, when I'm suffocating you, because I will, without meaning to, and I need you to tell me. I promise, I said. We kissed then, long and deep, a seal of the promises we'd just made. See you tomorrow, Catherine said when I got out of the car. See you tomorrow, I repeated, and watched her drive away, my heart full of hope and fear in equal measure. That night, Sophie came to my apartment with wine and her "we need to talk" face. Tell me everything, she demanded as soon as I opened the door. And I did. I told her about the weekend, about the conversations, about what had happened, about how I felt like I was standing on the edge of something huge and didn't know if it was an abyss or the beginning of something beautiful. God, Sophie said when I finished. You're in love with her. I'm not, I started, but stopped. Was I? So fast? Yes, you are, Sophie said firmly, and that's scary and exciting and probably complicated as hell. What do I do? I asked. Sophie took my hand. You love Madison, with everything you have, and if they hurt you, we'll deal with it together, but don't let fear stop you from living. Monday arrived with a mix of excitement and nerves. I didn't know what it would be like at the office, if Catherine would be different, if I would be different. When I arrived, everything seemed normal. People worked, phones rang, the building hummed with its usual energy. But when I entered Catherine's office for our usual morning check-in, everything changed. She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw everything. The weekend, the promises, the uncertain future. Without saying anything, she stood up, closed her office door, lowered the blinds, and kissed me. Good morning, she whispered against my lips. Good morning, I replied, smiling. This is going to be complicated, she said, pulling back but keeping her hands on my waist. We need to keep this professional here, at least until we figure out how to handle it. I understand, I said, though part of me wanted to shout from the rooftops that I cared about Catherine Sterling. But after work, Catherine continued, her eyes shining. After work, you're mine. Sounds perfect, I replied. And for a moment, in that office with the blinds closed and the outside world temporarily blocked out, it really was. But as I would soon learn, nothing perfect lasts forever. And there were forces in motion that neither Catherine nor I had anticipated, forces that would test everything we'd built. The first sign of trouble came that afternoon. I was at my desk when I heard raised voices from Catherine's office. One was hers, the other belonged to a man I didn't recognize. Lucy passed near me with a worried expression. What's happening? I asked. It's Ryan Sterling, she replied quietly. Catherine's cousin. It's not good when he shows up. The door opened abruptly, and a man in his mid-30s came out, his face red with anger. He looked at me as he passed, and his gaze was evaluative and unpleasant. So you're the new one, he said, stopping in front of my desk. The girl my cousin is pampering. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Of course you don't, he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just be careful, sweetheart. Catherine always loses interest eventually. He left before I could respond. Catherine appeared at her office door, her expression tense. Ignore him, she said. He's an idiot. Who is he? I asked. Family, she replied briefly. And a problem I need to handle. I'll see you after work, okay? I nodded, but the encounter had left me uneasy. There was something in the way Ryan had looked at me, something threatening, that made me feel like I'd just become a target. I didn't know how right that feeling was until later that week, when everything would start to fall apart in ways neither of us could have predicted. Ryan Sterling didn't disappear. Over the next few weeks, he became a constant and disturbing presence. He showed up at the office unannounced, made passive-aggressive comments about Catherine's decisions, and worse still, looked at me in a way that made me want to hide. "He's harmless," Catherine assured me one night while we had dinner at her apartment in Tribeca. It was an impressive space, all floor-to-ceiling windows with city views, designer furniture, and modern art. But it felt cold, less welcoming than the house in the Hamptons. "He's just upset because when my father died, his family thought the business should be theirs, that I was too young, too inexperienced." "And you proved them wrong?" I asked, picking at my salad. "I proved I didn't need their approval," Catherine replied, taking a sip of wine, which, apparently, is worse. I didn't like the casual way she talked about Ryan. I'd seen the way he looked at her, heard the venom in his voice. It wasn't just family annoyance. It was something darker. But Catherine was right about one thing. Keeping our relationship secret at the office was complicated. We couldn't touch, couldn't look at each other certain ways without risking someone noticing. It was sweet torture spending all day near her without being able to show what I felt. Nights were different. After work, I went to her apartment, or she came to mine. We cooked together, talked about everything and nothing, went to bed tangled in each other. It was perfect in a way that terrified me, because I knew perfect things eventually break. The first real crack appeared a month after the Hamptons. It was a Friday afternoon, and Catherine had an important dinner with Japanese investors. She'd asked me to accompany her, as she had several times before. But when I arrived at her office to leave, I found Ryan there, leaning against her desk with a smile that made me want to back away. "Madison," he said, as if my name were an insult. "What a surprise to see you here at this hour." "I have plans with Catherine," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ah, yes, the plans," he said, making air quotes. "You know, I've been watching you two. It's fascinating, really. The way my cousin looks at you. The way you look at her." My heart started beating faster. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. "Of course you don't," Ryan replied, approaching. "But let's be honest, Madison. Do you really think this is going to last?" Catherine gets bored. She always has. In 6 months, there'll be another new girl, and you'll be back to serving coffee to people who don't even look at you. His words touched every insecurity I'd been trying to ignore. "Leave," I said, but my voice sounded weak. "Or what?" Ryan asked. "Will you tell Catherine? She already knows what I'm like. And honestly, I think part of her agrees with me." "Agrees with what?" Catherine's voice cut through the air like a knife. She was at the door, and her expression was cold fury. Ryan didn't seem intimidated. "I was just having a friendly conversation with your... What is she exactly? Your assistant? Your charity project? Or is there something more?" "Get out of my office," Catherine said, and her voice was so dangerous that even Ryan backed up. "Now." "This isn't over, Catherine," Ryan said as he headed for the door. "The board has questions about your recent decisions, and when they find out you're romantically involved with an inexperienced employee, with no education, with nothing that justifies her position here—" "I said get out," Catherine interrupted, and there was something in her voice that scared me. Ryan left, but his satisfied smile told me he'd achieved exactly what he wanted, to plant seeds of doubt. Catherine closed the door behind him and turned to me. "Are you okay?" she asked, approaching. "Is it true?" I asked instead of answering. Is the board questioning your decisions because of me? Catherine hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. There are conversations, she admitted. Nothing serious. Ryan's just trying to create problems. But is there any truth to what he said? I pressed. About me? About not deserving to be here? Madison, no, Catherine said, taking my hands. You deserve to be here. You're brilliant. You work hard. But I don't have an MBA from Stanford, I interrupted. I don't have experience. Ryan's right. The only reason I'm here is because I lost a bet, and then this happened. That's not true, Catherine insisted. I offered you a real job because you're good at this, because you help me see things differently. Or because you feel guilty, I asked, and the words came out harsher than I intended. Because you manipulated the situation from the beginning and now you're trying to fix it? Catherine let go of my hands as if they burned. Is that what you really think? She asked, and there was pain in her voice. That all this is just guilt? That what I feel for you is just... what? Compensation? I don't know, I admitted, and tears threatened to fall. I don't know what to think. Ryan's right about one thing. I come from a completely different world than yours, and sooner or later that's going to matter. I don't care where you come from, Catherine said fiercely. I care about you, the person you are. But does it matter to your board? I asked. Does it matter to your business world, where appearances are everything? Catherine didn't answer immediately, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. I need to think, I said, walking toward the door. Madison, don't leave like this, Catherine pleaded, and it was the first time I'd heard her plead. We can talk about this. We can fix it. Not everything can be fixed with control and strategy, Catherine, I said, turning to look at her. Sometimes things just don't work. I left her office, her building, her world, and went home feeling like my heart was breaking into pieces. That night, Sophie came to my apartment and found me crying on the couch. Tell me, she said, sitting beside me. I told her everything. Ryan, his words, the fight with Catherine, my doubts about whether we could ever work when we came from such different worlds. Do you love her? Sophie asked when I finished. The question stopped me. We hadn't said those words yet, Catherine and I. We danced around them, hinted at them, but never said them. Yes, I finally admitted. I love her, and that makes everything worse. Why? Sophie asked. Because I'm going to lose her, I said. Sooner or later, her world is going to demand she choose, and I can't compete with that. Sophie took my face in her hands. Listen to me, Madison. Love isn't a competition, and if Catherine truly loves you, she'll find a way to make it work, but you have to give her the chance. You can't run away because you're scared. What if it's not enough? I whispered. What if love isn't enough? Then at least you tried, Sophie replied, and you'll live knowing you were brave. The next few days were torture. Catherine called me repeatedly, sent me messages, but I didn't respond. I needed space to think, to figure out what I really wanted. On Wednesday, Lucy came to my desk with an envelope. From Ms. Sterling, she said softly, with compassion in her eyes. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter in Catherine's elegant script. Madison, I'm not good with words when it comes to emotions. I've spent so much time building walls that now I don't know how to tear them down. But I need you to know some things. Ryan is right about one thing. We come from different worlds, but he's wrong about everything else. You're not a project. You're not a phase. You're not something I'm going to get bored of. You're the first person in years who makes me want to be better. who makes me want to stop controlling everything and just feel. And yes, it terrifies me. It terrifies me because I've lost before, and it almost destroyed me. But with you, for the first time, I'm willing to take the risk. If you want to leave, I'll understand. But if there's any part of you that wants to stay, that wants to fight for this, then let's talk. Not as boss and employee, not as the CEO and the coffee shop girl, but as two people who care about each other and want to figure out if they can build something real together. I'll be waiting on the terrace tonight at 8. If you come, I'll know there's hope. If not, I'll know I tried. With all my heart. Something I didn't know I still had until I met you. Catherine. I read the letter 3 times, each word resonating in my chest. I looked at the clock. It was 7:30 p.m. I stood up so fast my chair rolled back. I grabbed my bag, ignored the curious looks from the few employees remaining, and ran toward the elevators. When I reached the terrace, Catherine was there, her back to the door, looking at the illuminated city. She wore the same suit she'd worn at our first dinner at 11 Madison Park, and something about that made me want to cry. "You came," she said without turning, as if she'd felt my presence. "I came," I replied, approaching slowly. She turned, and in the dim city light, I saw the shadows under her eyes, the tension in her jaw. She looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept in days. "Did you read my letter?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, stopping a few steps away from her. "And?" she asked, and there was so much fear in that question that my heart clenched. "You were right," I said. "About many things, but you were wrong about one." "Which one?" Catherine asked. "You said you didn't know if you still had a heart," I replied, moving closer. "But you do. I see it every time you talk about your father, every time you look at those scholarships you fund in secret, every time you look at me." Catherine closed her eyes, as if my words physically hurt her. "I'm scared, Madison," she admitted, "scared of failing you. Scared that Ryan's right, and my world will eventually destroy you." "Your world won't destroy me," I said firmly. "But your fear could, if you let it paralyze you, if you let it stop you from fighting for what you want." "And what do you want?" Catherine asked, opening her eyes to look at me. "What do you really want?" I took the last step that separated us, close enough to feel her warmth. "I want this," I said. "You. Us. I know it'll be complicated. I know there'll be people like Ryan trying to separate us. I know your board will have questions, but I also know that what I feel for you is real. And that has to mean something. It means everything," Catherine whispered, and then she kissed me, desperate and soft at the same time, as if memorizing the moment. When we separated, we were both crying. "I love you," I said, the words finally coming out. "I don't know when it happened exactly, but I do. I love you." Catherine looked at me as if I'd just given her the most precious gift in the world. "I love you too," she replied. "So much it scares me, but I'm tired of being scared." We hugged there, on that terrace with the city as witness, and I felt as if something in the universe aligned. "What are we going to do about Ryan?" I asked after a long moment. "About the board?" Catherine pulled back enough to look into my eyes. "We're going to face them together," she said. "Tomorrow, I'll talk to the board. I'll tell them about us, and if they have a problem with it, they can go to hell." "Catherine, you can't risk your company for me," I protested. "I'm not risking anything," she replied firmly. "I'm choosing. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what I want over what's convenient. And I choose you. That night, we slept at her apartment, embracing, whispering promises in the darkness. And though I knew the storm wasn't over, that Ryan wouldn't give up easily, for the first time, I felt we could face it. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. Catherine woke me early, nervous but determined. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I asked while making coffee. "I've never been more sure of anything," she replied, though I could see the tension in her shoulders. We arrived at the office together, and this time we didn't separate in the lobby. We went up in the same elevator, our hands brushing. It was a small act of defiance, but it meant something. At 9:45, Catherine kissed me in her office before going to the boardroom. "Wait for me," she said. "No matter what happens, wait for me." "Always," I promised. The wait was agonizing. I sat at my desk, unable to concentrate on anything, listening to every sound coming from the hallway. Lucy brought me coffee I didn't drink. Victoria passed by and squeezed my shoulder in solidarity. After 2 hours, the boardroom door opened. Catherine came out first, her expression unreadable. Behind her came the board members, older men and women in expensive suits with expressions ranging from disapproval to curiosity. Ryan was the last to leave, and his expression of fury told me things hadn't gone as he expected. Catherine came straight to my desk. "Can we talk?" she said, and her voice was carefully neutral. I followed her to her office, my heart beating so hard it hurt. When she closed the door, she let out a long sigh. "I told them everything," she said. "About us, about how we met, about how I hired you because you're brilliant, not because we have a relationship." "And?" I asked, barely able to breathe. "Ryan tried to argue it's a conflict of interest, that it's unprofessional," Catherine continued. "But the rest of the board..." She paused, and a small smile touched her lips. "The rest of the board said that as long as our relationship doesn't interfere with business, it's our business." The relief was so intense my legs almost gave out. "Really?" I whispered. "Really," Catherine confirmed. "But there are conditions. We need to sign disclosure documents. You'll need to report to someone else, not directly to me. And we must maintain professional boundaries in the office." "I can do that," I said. "I can do all of that." "There's more," Catherine said, and her expression became serious. "I proposed something to the board, something I've been thinking about since we got back from the Hamptons." "What?" I asked. "I want to expand the scholarship program," she explained. "Make it something bigger, a program that doesn't just fund education, but also provides mentorship, employment opportunities, a real way for people like you, who have talent but haven't had the right opportunities, to enter this world." My throat tightened. "Catherine." "And I want you to run it," she interrupted. "Not as a favor, not because we're together, but because you've lived that experience. You know the barriers. You know what it takes to overcome them." "I don't know if I'm qualified," I started. "None of us is qualified for the important things," Catherine said, approaching. "But we learn, we grow. And you, Madison Hart, are one of the smartest and most resilient people I know. You can do this." The tears finally fell, but this time they were from relief, from hope, from the overwhelming feeling that maybe, just maybe, things could work out. "Did the board approve this?" I asked. "Unanimously," Catherine replied. "Even Ryan was forced to vote in favor because it was too good PR to oppose." "And him?" I asked. "What's going to happen with Ryan?" Catherine's expression hardened. "I gave him an option," she said. "He can accept that I've moved on without him and his family. that I've built something bigger than they ever could, and he can work with me in peace. Or he can leave. Choosing to fight me will only destroy him. And what did he choose? I asked. For now, nothing, Catherine replied. But he knows he lost. And for someone like Ryan, that's worse than anything else. The following months were a whirlwind. I formally resigned from my position as Catherine's assistant and started working on the scholarship program. Catherine put me in contact with educators, with nonprofits, with people who'd been doing this work for years. It was challenging in a way I'd never experienced. There were days I came home exhausted, convinced I'd made a mistake, that I couldn't do it. But Catherine was there, reminding me I deserved to be in that position, that I had something valuable to offer. Our relationship changed too. Without the boss-employee dynamic, we were simply two people who loved each other, trying to navigate life together. It wasn't perfect. We still fought, still had to work on Catherine's tendency to want to control everything and my tendency to doubt myself. But we worked on it. Together. 6 months after the day I lost that poker bet, Catherine invited me to dinner at 11 Madison Park, the same restaurant as our first business dinner. Celebrating something? I asked as we sat down. In a way, Catherine replied with a mysterious smile. When dessert arrived, Catherine pulled a small box from her purse. My heart stopped. Breathe, she said with a smile. It's not what you think. Yet. I opened the box. Inside was a key. It's to my apartment, Catherine explained. Or rather, our apartment, if you want. I know your lease ends next month, and I thought maybe, if you're ready, we could try living together. It wasn't an engagement ring, but somehow it meant more. It was Catherine saying she wanted to build a life with me, not just have a relationship. Yes, I said, closing my hand around the key. Definitely yes. Catherine took my other hand across the table, not caring who saw us. I love you, she said. And I know I've said this before, but I need you to hear it again. What we have is real. It's important. And I'm going to fight for it every day for the rest of my life. Me too, I promised. Because you're worth every difficult moment, every challenge, every fear. That night, we walked through Tribeca holding hands, not hiding, not apologizing for who we were. And when we got home to our apartment, I realized this was what I'd been looking for all my life without knowing it. It wasn't perfection. It was something better. It was real. The following months brought significant changes. The scholarship program launched its first cohort of 20 students. Seeing their faces when they received their acceptance letters, hearing their stories that resonated so much with mine, reminded me why I was doing this. Catherine was there for the launch ceremony, of course, but she stayed in the back, letting me have my moment. Afterward, when everyone had left, she found me in the empty room. "I'm proud of you," she said, hugging me from behind. "Look at what you've built." "What we've built," I corrected. "None of this would have been possible without you." "You're wrong," Catherine replied. "This is all yours, Madison. Your vision, your passion, your heart. I just gave you the platform." As for Ryan, he eventually accepted reality. Not with grace, but with resignation. He stopped showing up at the office unannounced, stopped making comments. Catherine suspected he'd found other problems to focus on, other battles to fight. A year after that night at the Tribeca penthouse, Catherine took me back to the Hamptons. It was the anniversary of the first time we'd gone together, when everything was still new and scary and full of possibilities. We walked the same mountain trail, sat on the same rock overlooking the ocean. "Do you remember what I asked you the last time we were here?" Catherine asked. If I regretted it, I replied. If I regretted the bet. And? She asked. A year later, what's your answer? I looked at the view, the town spread below, the infinite blue sky above. I thought about everything that had happened. The fights, the fears, the challenges. But I also thought about the mornings waking in her arms, about the dinners cooked together, about building something meaningful with my work, about the love that had grown between us in a way I never could have imagined possible. I don't regret anything, I said finally. Every difficult moment, every challenge, every fear brought me here. To you, to us, to this life we're building together. Catherine smiled, that complete and genuine smile she now gave me frequently. Good, she said, because there's something I want to ask you. She stood from the rock, and to my complete surprise, knelt in front of me. She pulled a box from her pocket, and this time it was what I thought. Madison Hart, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I know it's only been a year. I know there are people who'd say it's too soon. But I also know that when you find the right person, time stops mattering. She opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring, a gold band with a solitary diamond. You've taught me it's possible to let go of control and still not lose everything. You've shown me that love doesn't have to be scary if you're with the right person. You've given me a reason to build something more than a business empire, to build a real life. Tears ran down my cheeks, but I couldn't look away from her eyes. So I'm asking you, would you marry me? Would you spend the rest of your life building something beautiful with me? Yes, I said, the word coming out between sobs and laughter. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Catherine slid the ring on my finger, and then we were embracing, crying and laughing at the same time, and everything seemed perfect in a way I could now believe might last. That night, back at the Hamptons' house, lying in bed watching the stars through the skylight window, Catherine traced invisible patterns on my arm. What are you thinking? I asked. About how a stupid poker bet brought me the most important person in my life, she replied. About how the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Or maybe, I said, the universe knew exactly what it was doing. Maybe, Catherine agreed, kissing my shoulder. You know what I love most about you? What? I asked. That you make me want to be better, she said. Not just a better CEO or better businesswoman, a better person. A person who deserves your love. You already are, I said, turning to look into her eyes. You already are everything you need to be. Because I have you, she replied. Because you see me in a way nobody else does. I always will, I promised, for the rest of our lives. The following months were a whirlwind of wedding planning. We decided to do something small, intimate, just close family and friends. My mom came from Connecticut, excited and a bit overwhelmed by everything. Sophie was my maid of honor, of course, crying through the entire ceremony. Catherine's mother came from Boston, an older and gentle woman who hugged me as if I were her own daughter. Thank you, she whispered to me during rehearsal. Thank you for bringing the light back to my daughter's eyes. The wedding was in the Hamptons, at the house we now associated with our most important moments. It was simple but beautiful, with ocean views, wildflowers, and the people who mattered most to us. When we exchanged vows, Catherine cried. The cold and relentless CEO cried in front of everyone, and she didn't care. Madison, she said, her voice breaking, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Hope that love is real, that people can change, that the future can be better than the past. I promise I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of you. You already are, I said, squeezing her hands. And Catherine, you gave me something too. The belief that I deserve good things, that I deserve love, success, happiness. You taught me that where I come from doesn't define where I can go. I love you, and I'll love every version of you that comes, every challenge we face, every victory we celebrate, forever. When we kissed as wives, the applause was thunderous. And when we turned to our guests, I saw Victoria crying, Lucy applauding, even some board members who'd come, smiling with approval. Ryan didn't come, of course, but his absence was a gift in itself. The reception was perfect. We danced under the stars, ate homemade food prepared by the local restaurant, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. At one point, Sophie pulled me aside. "Happy?" she asked. "More than I ever thought I could be," I replied honestly. "You deserve it," Sophie said, hugging me tight. "I remember when you lived in that tiny apartment, counting pennies, not believing you deserved something better. Look where you are now." "I wouldn't have gotten here without you," I said. "Without your support, your friendship." "That's what sisters do," Sophie replied. "And now you have an even bigger family, a wife who adores you, a job you love, a future full of possibilities." She was right. Looking around the celebration, seeing Catherine laugh with her mother, seeing my own mom cry happy tears, I felt a gratitude so deep it almost overwhelmed me. That night, when everyone had left and we were alone in our room, Catherine took me to the terrace. "There's something I want to give you," she said. She handed me an envelope. Inside were legal documents. "What's this?" I asked, confused. "Ownership papers," Catherine replied. "For the scholarship program. I'm putting it completely in your name. It'll be yours to run as you see best, without my interference." "Catherine, you can't—" "I can," she interrupted. "And I want to. I've spent my whole life controlling things, owning things, but I've learned that the best things in life are the ones you build with other people, the ones you let grow freely. I trust you, Madison, completely." I looked at the papers, then at my wife, and felt a wave of love so intense it left me speechless. "Thank you," I finally managed to say, "for trusting me, for loving me, for everything." "Thank you," Catherine replied, hugging me, "for teaching me that surrender isn't weakness, for showing me that true love means letting go, not holding tighter." We stood there, embracing under the stars, two women who'd found their way to each other in the most unlikely way, and who'd decided to build something beautiful from that. 5 years later, I stood in front of an auditorium full of students, graduates of our scholarship program. The program had grown, now awarding over 100 scholarships a year, with a 95% success rate. These students came from places like I had come from working families, from difficult circumstances, but with enormous dreams. Catherine was in the first row, as always, her support silent but unwavering. Beside her was our adopted daughter, Sophie, 3 years old, named in honor of my best friend. We'd adopted her a year ago, and she'd transformed our lives in ways we'd never imagined. "When I was 24, I said into the microphone, I made a stupid bet that I thought would ruin my life. I lost money I couldn't afford to lose. I was forced to work for someone who intimidated me, and I thought it was the end of everything." The students laughed softly. They already knew this story. "But it turned out to be the beginning," I continued. "The beginning of learning I deserved more than I thought. The beginning of meeting the woman who would become my wife. The beginning of building something that mattered." I looked at Catherine, who smiled at me with those eyes I now knew so well. "All of you are at the beginning of your own journeys," I said, returning my attention to the graduates. And there will be times when you think you made a mistake, that you bet on the wrong thing, that you're on the wrong path. But I want you to remember this. Sometimes the biggest mistakes lead us to the most beautiful places. Sometimes losing is really winning. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Catherine found me in the crowd. "Beautiful speech," she said, kissing my cheek. "I learned from the best," I replied, hugging her. "Mommy!" Sophie ran toward us and Catherine lifted her in her arms. "Ready to celebrate?" Catherine asked our daughter. "Yes!" Sophie shouted, and her laughter was the most beautiful sound in the world. As we walked to the car, the three of us together, I thought about how far I'd come from that night at the penthouse. From the scared girl who'd bet too much, to the woman I was now, wife, mother, director of a program that changed lives. And it had all started with a poker game, a glass of champagne, and a woman who'd seen me when I was invisible. "What are you thinking?" Catherine asked, noticing my dreamy expression. "That I love you," I replied simply. "That despite everything, I'd do it all again exactly the same way if it meant ending up here, with you." Catherine took my hand, intertwining our fingers. "Me too," she said. "Every mistake, every fear, every difficult moment, it was all worth it." That night, after putting Sophie to bed, Catherine and I sat on our apartment terrace, watching the city that had seen us grow, change, become who we were now. "Do you believe in destiny?" I asked suddenly. Catherine thought about the question. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I believe in decisions. I believe every choice we made, even the bad ones, brought us here. And here is exactly where I want to be." "Me too," I said, leaning on her shoulder. Though I have to admit, when I accepted that bet, I didn't expect it to end like this. "Disappointed?" Catherine asked with a smile in her voice. "Quite the opposite," I replied. "I expected to pay a debt. Instead, I gained everything." "We gained everything," Catherine corrected. "Because this, what we have, we built it together." She was right, as she usually was. It wasn't the story of a rich woman saving a poor girl. It wasn't the story of a powerful CEO and her employee. It was the story of two imperfect people who found each other at the right time, who decided to be brave, who chose love over fear. And that, I decided, was the best story of all. Years later, when Sophie was old enough to understand, we'd tell her how we met. We'd tell her about the bet, about the fears, about the challenges. But we'd also tell her about the love that grew in the middle of all that, about how two people can build something beautiful when they decide to trust each other. But for now, in this perfect moment, with the city glowing below and my wife beside me, all I needed to know was this. I'd bet once, and I'd lost. But in that losing, I'd gained everything that mattered. Love, family, purpose, life. And if someone asked me if I'd do it again, if I'd accept that bet knowing everything that would come after, my answer would be simple. In a heartbeat. If you want the continuation of this story, write it in the comments, because that's the only way I'll know what you want. And don't forget that YouTube only prioritizes subscribers. So subscribe now so you don't miss the next story that will make you believe in love and second chances. This is just the beginning. See you soon.